Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about a recent adventure that I had with two of the most fascinating people you will ever meet, Peter and Rosemary Grant. Now both of these individuals are professor emeritus at Princeton University in the subject of evolutionary biology. Now when they asked me to go on a vacation with them to the Galapagos Islands, I was really excited at first. However, when we got there, they said that, well, instead of having a vacation laying on the beach like I expected, we were supposed to do chores pretty much the entire day. Which was fine because it was actually very interesting. Our experiments were on Darwin's finches. So each morning we woke up and we noted the weather conditions, whether it was rainy, it was cloudy, or the wind was blowing hard or softly. And then we surveyed the vegetation. We observed how many plants or what kind of plants were observed in each different quadrants. And then we measured the amount of seeds in these quadrants, and we also measured about the sizes of the seeds with calipers. After we measured the vegetation, then we started observing the finches. And in order to do that, we caught them with mist nets. And then once we caught them, we observed the morphology, we observed their plumage, and we observed the sizes, etc. Once we were done with our observations, then we marked each and every one of the finches that we caught with a metal band, as well as 3 polyvinyl bands. After that, we let them loose and observed their feeding behavior. Now, once the month was over, we kind of went around and observed which finches were still left over based on which finches had bands. And so we just took a note of which of the finches that we observed survived after that first month. And so we courted the leftover birds. And here's some of the results that the Grants had gotten. Over the last few years, they noticed that the beak sizes tended to get larger. So at first, the beak sizes were about average between the 8mm and the 12mm range. But over time, eventually after a couple years, they all tended towards about 10mm. So it was kind of peculiar as to why all of these beaks were converging into one size. So we took a look at some of the other data. Well, is beak size inheritable, or was there a heritable factor to it? So we took a look at, we compared the ratio between the original finches and their offsprings to see if there was a correlation between the beak sizes. Now, when you take a look at the line of best fits, the heritability is determined by the slope. And as you can see, the slope is actually pretty steep, which means there is a strong heritability factor of beak sizes. So there is some kind of genetic role playing into these birds' beak sizes. So the next thing we did was we kind of observed the population size over time, and they noted that the finches actually declined in population over the last few years. And so that was a little peculiar. And then we also took a look at the seeds abundance, and we also noted that those declined over time. So you can naturally conclude that if the seed population declined, well, the finches probably would decline too, because that's their food sources. And the seed population probably declined because there was some sort of natural disaster. So in order to demonstrate this, we have a quick experiment. I have a table here full of seeds of all sorts of sizes and shapes and colors, and I have a fan here, and we're going to name this fan natural disaster. And so when we turn the natural disaster on, it's a super strong fan, and it's going to blow away all of the seeds that are like smaller in size. So all of the small seeds are being blown away, and only the big ones are left because they're heavier and they're still around. And so we're going to use different tools to indicate different beak sizes. So here we have some forceps, and here I have a wrench. Now pretend these are birds and they want to eat these seeds. Which is going to have a little problem eating the seeds? Right. The ones that are forceps, or the ones with smaller beaks, are going to have a much tougher time getting into these seeds because it's a lot weaker. Whereas this wrench can easily crack into the seeds and feed off of them, essentially. So this is one of the big observations that the Grants made, and that led them to conclude that the beak side selection is due to natural selection. And so the large beak trait gives the birds an adaptive advantage, and therefore it's selected for, which is the reason why the population tended to have about 10 millimeter beaks over time, as opposed to the almost even distribution they had before. This absolutely supported Darwin's theory of natural selection, and it was also observable in a short period of time, which is amazing. Evolution usually takes a long time to occur, but the Grants were able to observe it within a couple of years, and that is why they are my heroes.